Hello. So when I was 14, my mom came into my room one night and she sat on my bed and she said, "So you're about to go in the 9th grade and you're about to be on the girls' basketball team, and when you go in the locker room, there's probably going to be some girls that are probably going to be talking about some stuff. So I have to ask you a question. Do you know what sex is?" And after the longest, most awkward few milliseconds in my entire life, I said, "Yes." And she looked visibly relieved, but then she also had to say, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And that was the talk for me. Really. So it wasn't long after that, actually, that my mother and my father presented me with a gold ring, which I actually still have right here. And they asked me to kneel with them in our living room floor and to pray to God that I would save myself for marriage. And they tearfully held my hands with the ring on it, and they said that they wanted me to promise to God and worse to them that I would do this. So that was how I was raised in South Mississippi, in the most sheltered of sheltery upbringings, Southern Baptist, very white, very middle class, all of that. So you kind of know this story, right? Like, you know how this goes. When a woman is taught that her worth as a human is dependent upon what she or who she allows to enter her vagina, or actually, more importantly, the perception of who or what she allows to enter her vagina, that's her worth. What happens to that woman when she goes to college? I mean, who knows, right? She goes crazy. But I didn't, actually. I met a boy and I fell in love with him and I decided I was ready to have sex. I was lucky that I got to decide. As we've heard tonight, not everyone gets to decide that. But I did, and we had figured it out enough to use a condom, so that was good. But eventually we decided that we wanted to use birth control instead, and I didn't want to use my insurance because I was my parents' insurance, and I figured they would definitely find out somehow. So I went to the health department, which was terrifying for a 20-year-old white girl who had only been in Memphis for a year or so. But then I figured out I was a student at the University of Memphis. I had a scholarship that paid for the student health fee. So I just went to the student health clinic right next to the library, and I got my annual exam, and I got my birth control and my refills. And that was not fun, but it was fine. And after I got out of college and I was working as a server, and I still didn't want to be on the insurance, and I was still afraid of my parents, I went to Planned Parenthood, and I showed them my meager pay stub from my job waiting tables, and I was able to get my annual exam and my birth control and have all my questions answered for free because they use a sliding scale there. And so, all these things were, fairly stressful for me, for someone whose parents never used the word vagina or sex in front of them ever to this day. Being afraid of that made those things really stressful for me, but nothing compared to about 2 years into that serious relationship. My period was late, and I thought that I might be pregnant. So my boyfriend got in his car and he drove to the drugstore, and bless him, he got not one, but a 2-pack of the most expensive pregnancy tests you can buy. You know, the ones that are like, no, a full week earlier if your life is over or not. And so he got that. And I took both tests in the comfort of my little bathroom in my apartment with the subway tile, and it was negative. And I cried lots of tears of relief and a few tears of weird, unexplained disappointment. But I got over it and I was fine, and I probably went to a show at the High Tone later or something. Because, that was what I did. At this point, you're probably thinking that this is a relatively uneventful experience that me and my vagina have had so far. And you'd be right, really. I mean, every experience is relative, but if we're thinking about the trauma that a lot of women experience, it's been easy for me. And, as I have gotten more in tune to politically sort of what's going on around these parts lately, and I've become aware of the tens of thousands of rape kits that we just never bothered to test. And, I went with Planned Parenthood a few years ago to Lobby Day to the Tennessee State Legislature and listened to the deadpan rejection and condescension of our representatives there. You're never going to get what you want, is what they told us. And last fall, to sort of be involved or at least be aware of what was going on with the Vote No on Amendment 1 campaign, Amendment 1 says that Women in Tennessee are not guaranteed the right to have access to abortion, even in cases of rape or incest. So that passed. And all these things, they fucking piss me off. They make me really mad. When I think about what could potentially happen in our state legislature, or at this point in our national political field, then I think about what would happen if our politicians ban abortion, or effectively ban abortion, or through restrictions, and I got pregnant. What would I do? Well, I would get in my car, which I own, and I would drive to wherever it is that they still let you get abortions, and I would pay for it, even if it cost a lot more than it should cost, if access was what it needed to be. And if I needed to take off work, I could, because I have vacation days and I have time off. And if I needed to take more time off work because of a mandatory waiting period, for example, then I could just take more time off work, even if it wasn't paid, because I could probably afford it, or my parents or my friends or somebody could help me. And I would be okay, I would be fine. I mean, this stuff doesn't really affect me. I don't even go to Planned Parenthood anymore. Like, I have my own insurance now, and I ended up somewhere in Germantown where they validate my parking and have fresh flowers in the waiting room when I go to get my gyno exam every year. You know, that's my life. So why do I care? Why am I so angry about these things that threaten our access to reproductive health care and other women's rights? I guess at some point, some piece of my white privileged brain cracked open, and I was able to see through listening to other people and what other people have said that my experience as a woman is not the only experience as a woman. That me going around in my happy Memphis loving life is not the only way that women experience Memphis. And that other Memphis women who aren't white, who don't live in neighborhoods that I write cutesy articles about, who don't have stable housing, who didn't grow up with two parents who love them, who didn't have access to education for the millions of reasons that some women don't have access to education. If she lived in a world now, or if she lived in a world where, you know, we didn't have access to the health care that we needed, or we didn't have access to abortions, and she got pregnant, what would she do? And I do not know. I literally don't know. I mean, would she be able to get child care for any existing children that she had? Would she be able to pay for abortion? Would she be able to take off work? Would she be able to afford to take off work, even if she could? Would she have a car like I had? Would her boyfriend have a car to go buy her the most expensive pregnancy test? I don't know. And that's why I get so mad. And I think if more people would be open to the idea that their experience is not the only experience, then maybe we wouldn't be fighting the same fight that we've been fighting for 60 years. And my empathy and my concern for my fellow females, for my sisters in womanhood, doesn't make me speak for them at all. And it doesn't make me a hero. It just makes me human. Thank you.